Now, for the same person who have that knowledge, you give them a magical hammer that is 100x or 1000x efficiency. Would you want to be that builder?
Activation rate is easy to check. Retention rate, however, is not. So that's why a lot of organization PM focus a lot around activation.
Your experience working in a consulting field, what do you think that has kind of provided you in terms of skills that would be valuable for a product manager?
You hear the same thing from the second user, from the third user, from the fourth user. That's when you know, okay, there's something going on around here.
Welcome to the Product House. So this is another special episode of the PM Spotlight, the roles, and the reflections, a journey into the real world of product management, celebrating the wins, the wobbles, and the way forward.
So each episode, we're sitting down with different kind of PMs, from enterprises to startups, from growth to ops, to unpack the role that they, what a PM role really looks like on the ground. So before we start, just as a disclaimer, to protect privacy, the names of people and companies mentioned in this episode may be changed.
Yeah, and this time we actually have another very special guest, Ryan Huynh, actually product managers with a consulting background. In order for us to better know about Ryan's, again, as part of our transitions, we prepare some rapid fire questions. So just to remind for everyone, the rules for rapid fire question is we have these rapid fire GPTs that automatically generate 5 questions. None of us have seen them beforehand. And then Ryan will answer it first, and then we'll go to Kiet and myself as well. So let me quickly just run
Second time we're testing the AI bot for rapid fire.
It can be some really good question or some really bad one. But the first one, I find it is actually quite relevant. So the first is either or questions. Early bird or night owls?
For me, it depends. These days, it's more night owl, but I used to be an early bird.
Okay, Kiet.
I wish I was an early bird, but I'm a night owl.
100% early bird. So did you ever use more than 3 buzzwords in a single slide deck?
Definitely yes.
Definitely yes. Definitely yes.
All the time.
It comes with the territory.
All right. Third question. So the prompt is, your roadmap just got cut in half. Prioritize impact or the quick wins?
Win.
Impact.
I want to
Half
say
is relative, right? It could be 2 years, it could be 1 year, it could be 6 months.
Depends on the reason, but likely impact. All right. What is the most ridiculous Slack emoji reaction you have actually used? Ryan?
This one's hard.
I have one straight away. I can go.
So many.
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. You know, there's a pirate one. There's just a pirate moving, like dancing.
Dancing.
Okay, maybe it's a custom one, but I'm using that all the time.
My favorite one is herding the cats. It's a cowboys, and then the cat's kind of running through the field.
Oh my God.
That's a
Okay.
classic.
I think my favorite one is the Street Fighter character do the Sudoku.
God, okay. Last question is actually really hard, but it's let's say the suggest answer time in 4 seconds. I don't know if we can get it. It's name a product you secretly think is overrated. No explanation allowed. But I feel like it's going to be so controversial. But you guys go.
Maybe you go first, because I need to think about it.
Okay. Sorry. Dovetail.
For me, it's Amazon.
Okay. 4 seconds. 4 seconds. Ryan, repeat.
For me, it's probably all the AI browsers.
Okay. There's no explanation allowed, but I really wanted to hear explanations. Maybe we'll talk it afterwards.
Maybe we'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
That was pretty cool. I love that it customized it for the consulting kind of theme.
Yeah.
As well.
So now, Ryan.
Who is Ryan?
Yeah, who's Ryan?
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Excited to be in the spotlight. My name is Ryan. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm currently a product manager. I have consulting background. I started my career in AI research and then slowly moved into tech consulting at one of the big fours. And then from there, I figured out that including buzzword doesn't necessarily drive impact. So figure out the art of product management, how to craft successful products that people use, and then that got me into more product management, getting more involved with the product community. So outside of work, currently the co-organiser of ProductTank Sydney.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one of the biggest PM community actually in Sydney as well. There's some really exciting events coming up in Sydney.
And Sydney, by default, being the biggest kind of market for PMs, you can say it's the biggest community in Australia, right? I guess it's quite fortuitous for you in terms of timing, right? Like AI is like the booming thing, and kind of your move into kind of product management in the last couple of years probably correlated to that, I assume. Tell us about that move from consulting through to PM.
Yeah, so in I started a lot of my early career in around AI, but also specifically around data analytics. Data analytics in research is mainly around either machine learning or statistical analysis, right? But when you move into enterprise projects that more common in tech consulting, like Big Four, they're all about building cloud data platform, either on Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, all of those different vendors. We have Snowflake, Databricks. A lot of time the main focus is moving the data on the cloud, making sure it's secure. And then in the later stage, when that is more mature, all the enterprises start looking into how to unlock those data value from their new data platform, right? But the main thing that I've seen missing piece is the understanding how people are using the data, and that is never in the conversation. I think because people involved mainly just focus on delivering the right data into the right zone, making sure the format is accurate, following the asset principle. When I sort of piqued my curiosity, because in data world, most of the people don't really care how people using the data in the end. It's very common when you do the assessment on BI dashboards. The enterprises would have 1,000 or more of them be created and maintained over the years. But when you ask, okay, how many of them being used? How often are they being used? How much value be created from those dashboards? There's no clear answer. Actually, most of the time, there's no answer at all, because people are more interested in creating them rather than letting them be used by the end users. So that's where I find a lot of missing piece.
What do you think the reason is that? What would trigger to build them in the first place then if they don't using it?
I think most of the time, the data team internally within an organization is more of a firefighting. They're trying to fill up any ad hoc requests from different departments. Everyone needs some sort of insights to make a better decision, right? So you would have a marketing team would bombard the data team. Hey, what's the customer retention rate last month? What are the top churn risk? And then you would have the finance department need the data to be clean, so they need to do end of month, end of year reporting, accounting standards, those sort of area. So a lot of time the data team just so busy fulfilling all these ad hoc requests, they never look into it on more an operational level. And then also on the product lens, how to make it more reusable, and how to make it more efficient, making sure people use it long term, and feed those needs on a scalable way.
Is that what inspired you to actually move into product? Because you see the gap.
Yeah, at that time, I looked into two areas: either be more of a data architect or a data sort of head of data who looking more into the data strategy of the organization, which is probably common across everyone. That's led me to read the book to bunch of data strategy frameworks, and I also read a whole book from MIT about how to monetize your data assets. And there are
Is that the typical kind of career path available for data people to progress up?
Yeah, I think in the enterprise, usually the area you would move slowly towards probably head of data, driving the data strategy, making sure data is always in the conversation, that data team always get the right support. When things fall out, I was in an organization where they didn't have that title anymore, so there was no responsibility and not enough support, and that's where things can fall apart pretty dangerously. So that role is very important for an organization. Yeah, so going back to the framework of data monetization, there were 5 different dimensions that I looked into. 4 of them are very common, usually just the data, infrastructure, your processes, your people. But the 5th one is the most important one, actually, is the user understanding or the customer understanding. And when I chat with everyone in the field, everyone just all about the first 4. dimension of it, but never the fifth. And that's got me very into, if you want to have a successful data strategy and implementation, you need the fifth dimension in there. So that's one particular route that I found out this lesson. And then the second one, I'm always interested in, making cool products and products that people use. So sort of also be naturally following, Y Combinator, a lot of YC, startup school lectures are very, very cool. I think I never heard of those information and insights when I was at uni or early in my career. So that dragged me in more into it. And then eventually I found out whole product management, and I found out they have very good framework how to, validate early hypothesis, whether this is the problem that the user have, but then all the way onto the post-launch, right? How to monitor if the user actually using your product or not, identify what are the key problem areas so you can increase that product usage in the users.
Fascinating stories. That's amazing. Then practically, how did you actually get the first product job? I assume most of your friends and network around you is all kind of data people. How did you actually land the first PM job?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because actually that career pivot was intentional, but how I landed the role was quite a bit of a surprise. At that point, I was involved in quite a big data platform project, and we did have a role called data platform or data product owner, who would be the person who ensure that the roadmap of the data platform is delivering the right data products to the business. And I was more operating as a squad lead, but within my squad, we also have a product owner. The product owner they tend to be from the client company itself, because they would know how to use the data more than a consultant, supposedly, right? But that in the end, the reality is that's just the title. The biggest challenge we had, which is quite bizarre, was the product owner actually blocking us from talking to the users and understanding how they're using the data and the current reports. And that was quite a big friction. And I think that there's a misunderstanding there, right? When the product owners don't have the right training, usually these are the people who already have their full-time role within the company, right? They will be a domain expert in the area, and then being the product owner was just a side responsibility that they need to do, add it on. So I think the quick misunderstanding for most of the people around that time was, product owner or product person supposed to be the voice of your user or customers. And I think people understood that they should be the gatekeeper of all the feedback in between the product team and the users, where these two shouldn't talk to each other. I should be the one filter all the feedback and all the requests. And I think that that project, we learned a big lesson that that's not the case. And in the early days, I knew that it wasn't the case from all the stuff I read about product management, right? So I still tried to talk to the user. And at that time, I already operate more of a junior PM, where I already knew how to drive the roadmap, do a lot of prioritization. So there was an opportunity open up for a data product owner who also driving that roadmap for a data platform. So apply for it at a big, one of the biggest health insurance in New Zealand. And when I went through the interview, one of the test question was, how would you prioritize this particular project, given, if this is the case study? And then I would just have such a clear answer on how to prioritize it, identifying dependency, stakeholders, making sure things are clear, and then making sure things are put into sprints and measure the momentum accordingly. After the interview, the recruiter called me right away and said, the hiring manager want you. And they gave me an offer that way above what I asked for, which is the first time I never, I didn't ask, but that just gave me a lot of good confidence that I can be good at this.
Yeah, nice. Love a good interview, PM case study interview.
I'm very curious about one thing, because now you have been PM for a while. Actually, how would you define the role? How would you define the product manager's role?
To me, the essence of a product manager is making good decisions. I'm a bit tired of bad decisions being made, and then that drive very bad inefficient use of resources. So really question why. Just put on that algorithm that Elon put in, right? Like before you make a things, question and justify the requirement. And I think that's probably the biggest value the PM should do, is actually question why and double down on it and making sure that is the right fit for the strategy, for the user, for the business, and
100%.
get everyone on board. When people see the fit, they will get excited and want to be on board and make it happen. So making a very good decision.
I love that, because that link with your original stories as well, with your original frustration about why people don't asking about why they even asking for this particular report. What do you want to do with this data? So I like how that all kind of link it back.
Yeah, nice. I'm keen to know when you kind of step into your day-to-day work, like which part of your day actually gives you the most energy?
Yeah, the part that gives me the most energy is probably interacting with both the product team and the customers. Actually, the best moment, this probably doesn't happen every day, but the best moment is when you get a feature or part of your product on the user hands, and then they use it, and then they ask question about it, they react to it. And the best thing is when you have the member from your team, right, the designer, developers who are doing it, in the meeting themselves and watching the user reaction, because I think that's very impactful.
Do the user do what you expect them to do, or do they always do something completely different?
Actually, there are two reactions I think is always give a very good laugh or enjoyment for everyone, is when you get surprised that things actually didn't go the way it intended. But also another good, I guess, observation that bring a lot of joy is when you hear the same thing from the second user, from the third user, from the fourth user. That's when you know, okay, there's something going on around here that we can help.
Yeah.
And you can see that, the subtle eye contact between the team members and then the user just keep talking, right? And then and then you just keep watching. You're like, yep, I heard this before.
Well, on that note, can you actually give us one of the example, like sharing one of the big wins of one of your favorite project that you work on, and then a specific kind of moments?
Yeah, I think my most recent project is probably my hardest for now. and one of the biggest achievement in my PM career. I recently helped Assure Quality, which is a New Zealand-based company, build and launch AQ Intelligence. AQ Intelligence is a digital suite of different products that have food safety managers across all the food companies to manage their food quality assurance. I think that the reason, I'm very, very happy and proud of this is when you create a new product from 0 to 1, right? It's very, very difficult. The majority, when you do that in a big company, in an enterprise, you get a lot of no's because that's something new. That's something could be disruptive, and not everyone, support innovation, and there's a lot of risk. So initially, you would get a lot of no's from different people, but then you also get a few yes from a very passionate and supportive people who want to see change, who want to make it better for the customers. So just going through that whole 0 to 1 journey and seeing how that changed the internal staff perspective of how they could do better for the customers, I think is a very satisfying turning point. But at the same time, also see the customers themselves, right? It's very much mirroring what the customer do. You can imagine a whole normal distribution of your customers. You have early adopters, and then you have mainstream, and you have like late stage adopter. You will get one or two very exciting for innovation. These will be your early adopters, right? Like very supportive, very advocate. They give you a lot of feedback. They complain a lot, which is great. And then you also will get early rejection from anyone else who's not early adopters. But when your product get more mature, it found that product market fit, it actually bring the value to the customers. This is what we experienced. We experienced customer that initially rejecting or wasn't, a big support of the idea. They actually come back.
Their mind.
Yeah, they actually come back.
What do you think that make them changing their mind? Is that because the particular feature they just love it, or is it because they see everyone's using it? That's why they wanted to changing their behavior as well.
Yeah, I think it could be a mix of everything that you mentioned, but I think they're also a flavor of risk taker and risk averse, right? But there's
They
also a
move on
flavor,
from the curve.
yeah, and there's also a flavor of some people just want to wait it out, see other people try it and shape it. They didn't have the time or efforts to do that. But at the same time, sometimes making new thing is just it take that vision, it take that courage to challenge the way you currently do. And
Mm.
a lot of times, that's not thing that people think that they can do. But when you have the early adopters that can do that, I think it's amazing.
I have another follow-up question because I'm very curious about the 0 to 1. That's my favorite type of project and product, and that's the reason why I go to startup as well, right? But then I'm very curious when you mentioned about product market fit. So how did you know that product, because you're building from zero, from no customer? When was that moment you know this product find the product market fit?
Yeah, there's a lot of different definition of product market fit. I think I still juggle quite a bit along the way. When exactly do we hit product market fit, right? Initially, we did get a lot of conversation from customers. It wasn't hard to book a demo call with a customer. It was quite easy. The conversion rate of demo call was quite high compared to everything else that we did. So I thought that was product market fit, but then I realized there's certain things that we build, people stop using it after one or, second time they open it. So then that sort of challenged the whole product market fit definition. And at that state, I wasn't really happy. I think to me, the end goal is, build something that lasts long and build something that people will use and actually get value out of it. So it constantly evolved to the point that I think until you have your product, get that acquisition quite easy, but at the same time, the retention, people actually use your product and keep using it. I think that's where you found product market fit.
Yeah, I love the answer. Very resonate.
Yeah, might change my definition in the future, but I think that's pretty valid for now.
100%. No, and also I always respect people care about the retention because one of the things that I experience in both B2C and B2B world, people really care. There's always a very effective way to measure about the activation rate because it's slightly easier because it's about how many people you convert, like you say, from the demo or a particular button, see the ads to the actual user. Activation rate is easy to check. Retention rate, however, is not. So that's why a lot of organization PM focus a lot around activation because that's something easier to showcase instead of retention. So it's actually really good to hear that you pay as much kind of effort into the retention side as the activations.
Yeah, spot on. Might change the pace a little bit. I know the big theme here is you obviously come from a consulting background as well as Charlotte and myself. So in your opinion, Ryan, your experience working in a consulting field, what do you think that has kind of provided you in terms of skills that would be valuable for a product manager?
Yeah, so in consulting, there are different type of consulting as well, right? You have management consulting and you have more specialized consulting. I started in a more specialized consulting. You need to have a deep knowledge and understanding of the domain you're in. But at the same time, it's also to help you understand what problems that the customers, that the clients have on your project. But also, where do they want to head to? What's the future state they want to be? And I think constantly developing that knowledge and understanding from reading different sources in the industry, I think is very good for the PM, especially in you in B2B area, because you need to understand the evolving landscape of the market. Where are the players at? Where are the competitors? These days, there's a lot of partnerships involved, right? Even though you have, for example, Databricks, Microsoft have a product that's competing with Databricks, but you also see a partnership between the two. So how does that work? I questioned that quite a bit earlier in my career.
So who isn't competing against Microsoft?
Yeah.
Well, we won't go there, but yes.
They're going too broad. Yeah, I think that having that is good. And in the specialized consulting, you get to move quite quickly, right? From different project to different projects. So you learn a lot, you pick up things, you need to pick up things quite quickly. But at the same time, when you have a project and you want to evolve your career within it, you need to understand how to drive the project successfully, how to finish it within a timeline. And I think that understanding what the success factors to drive a project is quite good. It's very similar to more of a junior PM, right? But I think the consulting world, they really get the model, I think, work very well and refined, I'll say.
Model means the framework and the way of thinking.
Yeah, the operational model of delivery. I think for me, especially because the company I was at, they very good at delivering cloud data platform projects for many times, like successfully. So I think they have very good operational model. You can pick up or you can shape to fit, a completely different project in a different domain. I think that they share a very similar way of working.
How do you bring that learning into your PM's world afterwards? Do you also actively trying to build some sort of framework, operationalize a lot of things you do, or?
Yeah, you find the gap. Usually you will figure it out the gap from the team ritual or like the sprint ritual. And then from there, you will understand why is there a gap. I've seen this gap been closed before. Can I steal some techniques from this operating model and give it a try? And even though the operating model I experienced in the consulting firm, on the other days, it was good, right? But they constantly improve it and refine it. And I can see it improve over time too. So having that active, retro perspective and keep constantly improve on it is also a very good thing. But then you need to have the right support, the people who driving this operation altogether. So gathering the support, understanding your stakeholder and stakeholder management is quite important skill. I think you wouldn't learn anything better than that in consulting because as a consultant, as you guys might know, right? You're doing work for client. Client is one of the big stakeholder that you need to manage. But at the same time, you not only work within your team because you work with other vendors that your client also hiring. So how do you work around with all of different vendors all together that put on this big project and deliver it for the client? I think that shape your communication skill very well. It shape how you want to influence with the authority. I think I learned a lot of that.
It kind of become your unique value propositions as a PMs now, because you have all these additional skills that probably most of the product manager doesn't equip with. So that's really cool.
You did touch on strategy as well earlier on around kind of understanding the macro environments and kind of adapting to that. And I think one thing, Charlotte, I don't know if you've got the same experience, but one thing I've seen some product managers in the market, as an example, often so focused on their product that they kind of neglect to see the broader picture of kind of macro trends, right?
That's one of the biggest gap when I was in the kind of consulting, when I coming back to the PM world, I found the biggest gap actually is what you just described there is everyone seems a very good tool set, but very, very specific target for product layer. So I'm definitely interested to hear about kind of, Ryan, your experience about how do you approach a kind of a bigger picture, like company strategy, and then when you're approaching a product different from the kind of other PM as well.
Yeah, I think the easiest way and it's probably the cheapest way for all the PMs to get a lot of training in this and aspiring PM is do a lot of case competition at uni.
Are you sure exam? I have to go back to do exam.
Which is very contradicting to the norm. I would say I'm a bit more contrarian here, but I think you would get hustle hard through that journey. The reason is you can come up with whatever it is, whatever strategy or whatever roadmap plan that you can think that you can solve the problem. Any other day, if you don't get the the link between the strategy and the business outcome and the landscape that the business operating in. The person from that company that you present to, they're just not interested in what you're saying. And there's no worse feeling than that when you work on a presentation for 1 or 2 days and then present it to the judge, and then the judge just show no interest. I would say that honed a lot of my strategic thinking, understanding the big picture, understanding where they're heading or where they want to head to, and then what are the challenges. You get a lot of that, and when I moved into consulting, obviously most of these work would be more of a director level or partner level, right? Fortunately, I got to work with a partner very closely, so I got involved in some of those work, and then you get the challenge, you get the feedback from the partner onto, okay, these slides could be too technical, or just not where they're heading. That's not where they value, that's not where their interests are. Or, there's just too much competition in here. This is not what we want to be.
Yeah. If I paraphrase that, what I've heard is basically you're treating your stakeholders as if they're customers, right? And you're taking into account their needs as well as what you need to deliver to make sure it's all aligned. And in the consulting world, very much so, your stakeholder is your customer. They're paying your bills, right? So you have no choice but to think like that. Whereas a reminder to a lot of product people in the market is that you need to understand that kind of influence map.
I actually have something I'm quite sincere to ask both of you for some advice. Because one thing I realized in the consulting world, strategy is a common language. If you're talking to anyone in the consulting world about strategy, partner, director, whatever role they are, people interested to talking about it. However, when you actually go into the real world, I don't know, a lot of people in your workplace, if they're not from the consulting world, they may not comfortable to directly talking about strategy with you. I wonder, how do you even approach it? Because I definitely experienced that when I try to talk to people about strategy, and other people's head is really in the executions mindset. So I'm really interested to know, how do you actually bring up strategy as a conversation
in the normal consulting world or in the PM world?
Not non-consulting world, in your product world, in your product role? How do you approach strategy conversation there? And how does it different from the consulting?
My go-to question, usually these would be to more senior leaders, right? Because these are the people who get a good understanding of the landscape, and see where the company could be, and then they're also involved in setting the strategy. My go-to question is, what does success mean to you? Usually the answer would be a very straightforward, outcome, but how to get there, what is the bet we're making to get there, is the strategy behind it. And I think starting with that question and let them run through the answer is the best way for me to get that understanding.
Very good approach. Very good approach.
How about you guys?
Kiet, I'm curious about your approach as well.
Yeah, I'm more so empathetic about talking about strategy. I am a strategy nerd, and so I do kind of get into rabbit holes, and people will entertain me purely out of curiosity. I think for a lot of people who it just depends on what is within your sphere of influence, right? And if a person's kind of spending 6 months delivering, focused on kind of one particular outcome, right? Not even outcome, sometimes it's just deliver this and get it live. It's very hard for them to kind of step away and say, hey, what does good actually look like in 6 months, 12 months time, when they know that their backlog is so full that they don't have the luxury of thinking that far ahead, right? So what I normally do is try to kind of step them into a fictional universe where you just delivered what's urgent and burning out the door today. Get them to imagine that and say, okay, now the world's your oyster. We're facing these competitive forces, or kind of try to paint the picture and draw them into the conversation of, whether it's what's the best outcome here, similar to kind of what Ryan said, or have you considered X, Y, Z, right? So
I like what you guys do, because basically both of you guys kind of have the end in mind. So I think you two kind of have a similar approach, but different executions in the way. I think basically Ryan asking about what success look like, and then putting together a path there, Kiet, get them to imagine what's the beautiful future it is. No, that's a really good advice.
Yeah, I think the most compelling strategy to me is list out or actually share with people the evidence or like bit of pieces of the story that led you to making this bet versus a million bets that you could make to get the same outcome.
So your strategy is not only about what you do, it's also about what you don't do, what you not do. What's your focus, basically?
I think it's more about what you don't do, right? Is how to be strategic is to be focused, and you know, like what Steve Jobs usually say, right? Like the best way to focus is to say no to a million things.
Yeah, say no is hard. It's easy to say, but it's hard. All right, I'm going to change in the speed a little bit. I have a very, very exciting question to ask, like Ryan specifically, because you come from data and AI world. So now AI is such a kind of a disruptive things in our life. So I'm very curious, how does AI actually changing your way of working at the moment, and also even the way of thinking?
For disclaimer, I have made many prediction about AI throughout the years.
Yes.
I'll say some of it, you know, went very well. Some of it didn't. NVIDIA was one of them that went very well.
Is that your prediction?
did you back it up with money?
I did, but wasn't as much as I wanted.
Okay,
Good
we
work.
should ask Ryan for some advice, some predictions.
But
Like-
one is I never thought about the whole LLM, because when I was pretty deep into it, it's more of neural networks, deep learning, right? Transformer wasn't even in discussion at that point. I knew that unsupervised learning will be bigger than supervised learning. That was already in the conversation.
Interesting. Well, but then Ryan, what are the AI tech you are playing with at the moment? Like, are you using anything in your work or day-to-day life?
Yeah, I'm trying to use as much as I can, pretty much everything. So to your question, how would that affect the PM role or just my day-to-day in general? For me, day-to-day, I try to use voice. I try to use more voice interaction as much as I can. I think it's a lot quicker to talk to people.
Do you think you get a different response if you wrote the same thing versus if you said it to your AI agent? Does the actual tone affect the response that you get?
You actually don't need to write in a very formatted way with the voice. I think voice tend to get your intent a lot better. I don't exactly know how to do that, but it seems like with voice format data, you can get away from a lot of that structural problems with the text data. So that's one thing I'm trying to do, even though Apple Intelligence is not getting up to speed to that.
I heard good things about Apple Intelligence, so I'm a bit disappointed.
No, yeah, I think they could do a lot better. I think there's a lot of disappointing surprises, you know, when I'm like, man, I think Siri could do this now, you know, like why?
It blows my mind, right? Like the LLM kind of capabilities have just gone through the roof, yet all the voice devices feel out of date. I'm a Google person, and like the Google Home just...
Well, but if you're using the Apple one is worse than the Google. I think.
Yeah, okay.
Again, yeah, I think Apple lose a little bit in this AI world, a little bit.
The bar's just so high now that, you know, you think they could just... Well, Google has state-of-the-art models, right? You think they could just turn it on for some of these services, but clearly it's not profitable to do so.
Yeah, I think, to the original question, I think the second thing always do, which I try to do more these days, is when kind of like have a retrospective with your ChatGPT, so they have a bit of a context of what you've been through. And you know, I especially now, because I'm looking to move into different area, so how to position myself or how to improve myself to give me a better position, but using it to coach me, you know, is life-changing, because the advice it got and the plan that it helped me to better every 2 weeks sprint is phenomenal, because a lot of times you're looking for that kind of coaching from people, right? And a lot of times you got to go to events or you got to reach out. It requires a lot of efforts. But these days you get a very detailed advice. And a lot of time I'm very surprised how good it is.
Yeah. But what's your workflow actually like to do this retro? Do you just ask them the same question, or did you set up some sort of custom GPT to ask you questions?
So the prompt template is usually would be, hey, I want to be here, but this is where I'm at.
Yeah, nice.
Cool.
So obviously, personal growth is a big thing for you, and you're using AI tools to help you with that internal growth. What about keeping up with new tools and trends? Yeah, do you have a particular process you follow, or something that you do to kind of stay sharp?
Usually I just follow my curiosity. I try to be consistent, spending 2 hours every day, just doing anything. Anything. Could be reading blog, could be trying different things. I'm picking up on hands coding more these days.
Wow.
That was actually the the second biggest misprediction that I was about to mention earlier. I think in the very early days, one of the decisions I decided to move into PM is PM figured out where the value is and build a product for it, right? Or try to find a way to iterate very quickly and efficiently to get the best value for what you're building, or build the things that get you the best value. So I think that is a very good skill to learn, to optimize that kind of gradient descent in a world of problems. And another part of that decision was I figured that coding would be one of the first area to be automated if AI get better. And at that point, the reason I found out was I was actually giving a introduction to deep learning workshop at university as part of my job there. And the year before that, my colleagues had to set up, virtual machine, like manually, what have you, right? And then create a Jupyter notebook, and then create user authentication, making sure things are distributed very efficiently for the people who go to the workshops and have a bit of a margin, those sort of stuff. Right? The year I was in, Google Colab was already a thing. So I just have everything on Google Colab, and that just break everything down. I don't need to worry about anything, right? The researcher or the uni people who go to my workshop, they can just log into their Google account. They can spin up a Google Colab. Google Colab have their own things called TPU, right? TensorFlow processing. And then because Google Cloud do that all for free, and that was my biggest confusion. GPU is still very expensive, like computing is still very expensive. How could Google just give that out for free? And one of my colleagues mentioned was because they want your data, because they want my code in the Google Colab. And that was one of the early signal that I know that, okay, coding is going to be one of the first to be automated, because they just have so much data there, right? And they can verify if the code work or not. So that was one of the areas that I feel like I didn't really want to get too technical. But I think that was my biggest mistake. Like when I hear people say that, LLM gonna automate, there's not gonna be software engineers, or I feel bad for, software engineers and junior software engineers. So I went almost 180 in that area, because the way I think about it is, if a person know how to build a house, right, using a hammer, and it used to take them a year to build a house. Now, for the same person who have that knowledge, you give them a magical hammer that is 100x or 1000x efficiency. Would you want to be that builder? Build a lot of houses?
So well said. Oh my God.
So I think the reason this is quite contrarian. I think the reason we actually heard a lot of noises around software engineering is gone is because people who don't understand that, they are the one that have time to talk about it. And the people who truly understand it, they're too busy building. They wouldn't argue about it.
That's such an interesting point. I love it. So what tools you are using to learn all the programming stuff at the moment?
I used Cursor in the early day. I used Klein. I tried to use pretty much everything I can get my hands on. The latest one I try is Replit. Replit, I prefer a lot more because you can deploy it right away.
Mm.
So it's just a lot better, coding environment and experience.
2 hours per day learning and try all these new tools. This is so good. But how do you make sure you don't get burnt out?
Sometimes I do feel burnt out. I was talking to my friend the other day. I think over time, the speed of innovation is going to scale a lot more to the point that we just can't relate to what other people are doing because they get too specialized, right? So internally, I think I need to feel more comfortable that this is the way the world's going and there's no way back. So just feel comfortable at your own pace and your own journey, your own path. And then, at the end of the day, everyone building this tool just to make something better, right? So if you still have an idea of making something better, then good for you. You should feel good about it and just take your own pace. Going back to the philosophy of PM, right? Before doing everything is trying to understand why and trying to figure it out where the value is to other people, and then try to leverage this new technology. I think sometimes things are moving too quick, but I feel like in general, it's good for the world that we going that way. We're expert in this field and explain it to us. Now you have these tools could explain it to you quite quickly. So the speed turning information to knowledge is a lot quicker now, right? So then what it means is people are gonna keep increasing the knowledge and getting super curious in one particular area that other people might not be because the speed you go is just a lot quicker. So then I think over time, people will know a lot of different things that other people just can't relate. Just like how we don't know certain skills that other people know, right? It just couldn't it just doesn't make sense if I spend 10 years, now master information security, something like that, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. So just picking my own path and delivering better value from there, I think is a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally empathize with that kind of view, right? I've spent countless hours trying to improve my gardening skills, and every time I try to talk to Charlotte about it, she's kind of just
I was like,
changes the topic.
when can I eat that tomatoes? I don't want to hear anything about it. I just want the tomatoes.
Clearly very outcome driven.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, I feel like Ryan is you are quite optimistic about the whole what AI bringing to the world. And then, so the first time when I actually met Ryan was actually in the events called Product Management 2030, which is talking about the future about management. So I'm actually really curious. What do you think is going to be the future of the product manager's role? What is it?
I actually don't think that's the future, but I think that's the now, and it's slowly spreading. I think product managers can't just do whatever they conventionally do. I think, there's this framework for product managers when you delegate different things if you have limited resources within your team. If product managers is closer to what designer do compared to engineer, when you have tasks that more engineering focus, then you know that these are the area that you might need some help. You can't do it yourself or pick it up. You have to raise your hand and ask for, I don't know, engineering manager or hiring manager or whoever the stakeholders in your team, right? That, hey, we need these people to do that. But if there's a task related to more of go-to-market or design, then you can pick it up. I think that is blurring. I think product you're gonna see. Well, I'm already seeing it, but I think it's gonna be more obvious that product managers probably gonna need but overlap around designer and also early prototype, and then you would have the one that blurry around go to market and growth, right? I think that, but the nature of everything, I don't necessarily think it would change. I think if you have very internal conflict interest to optimize certain things, right? If we talk about that product trio, because in that event we have one person mentioned that okay, there won't be an engineer, right? Like in the team, and you have a question raised that well, actually my team have all engineers and designer, but no product managers.
Yeah.
I think if you cut off that dimension that you're trying to optimize, it will skew your product a certain way. And it might work, might not work, but I wouldn't say it's like the perfect scenario for your product to be in. So I think it should take a different person to optimize that dimension, rather than one person optimize everything.
It sounds like you hold two views. You were talking about PM probably will become a bit more full stack. You probably need to lean in a bit more UX, a bit more go-to-market, which you become a bit more all-rounder in the PM role. But at the same time, I think you also mentioned around depends on the organization and the need. You do need to have all these kind of balanced role. So they will still exist because without any one of them, there might be some sort of bias towards a particular functions. Is that kind of what you say?
Yeah, I think if we look at it more of the T-shaped kind of mental model, right? I think the horizontal line of the T is going to get wider, and then the vertical line going to get deeper, right? I don't necessarily think, for me personally, I wouldn't trust myself doing amazing design or, building things that don't break. I still want to work in a team where, the people who are passionate about this area, they will drive these goals for me, and I drive these goals for them. I think the team of that three dimensions still work. I still need to hold true. And that's big part of it is, you always try to balance between the three, right? There's always, that kind of debate in the meetings. And I think it's good when you can debate with someone else. It's good for the conversation. It's good for your mental health, because you don't want to. The worst thing is you don't want to debate yourself when you look at the mirror, and then you can't make a decision, right?
I like the point of view.
And your AI chatbot will probably towards agreeing with you more often than not.
Someone was saying everyone's chatbot will actually all have a unique personality. So three of us putting the same question into our ChatGPT. Our ChatGPT will come back to us with different answer actually, because I think like Ryan's chatbot were understanding Ryan's kind of intentions and how Ryan understanding certain questions well. What you like to like what area you wanted to know more or less. So you will get one answer. Me and Kiet, and then maybe Kiet will get a bit more answer related to the gardening aspect, and I will get zero part around that in my answer. So that's why I feel like every single one of our chatbot is going to lean towards kind of our basically preference as well.
Yeah, it's getting more personalized to how you communicate, how you think. Yeah, I think what you mentioned earlier, Charlotte, I think there's a timeline, right? Like 0 to 1, 1 to many. I think 0 to 1, when things are limited, now is a lot quicker to do it, because you have a broader range of capability that you can do. But then when you go 1 to 0, now you have a lot more people who are talented in this area with a very deep knowledge. And then if that's the case, then how to bring all of these talented people work together, I think is going to be a pretty interesting problem, because now, I think each of these areas are going to break down further. And then how do you bring the right people? Because you don't want a room full of people, right? There's only limited number of people to bring good conversation and collaboration. So that'll be a new challenge, I think.
There's a new phrase I heard. Someone sent me a playbook called Tiny Teams Playbook. Basically, there's a big theories in the Silicon Valley that in the future it's going to be two sides, either the tiny teams or the giant teams. It will going to be a bit less in the middle, because it's about the needs. Before there's a need from 0 to 1, and there's 1 to many. That's why there's so many SaaS company, everyone trying to target for the messy middle. But there's a lot of theory around they may not have because everything becomes so tailored for individual. They may not need to be 1 to many, but they may need to something for 1 to many, which is like some infrastructure level tools that everyone use, like ChatGPT or some whatever large language model. Everyone use, that's for everyone, or 1-on-1. But the middle side is going to be less and less as well, which will impacting the team.
The positive thing I'm getting out of all of this is every scenario we've talked about, at least in the kind of near future, we're still talking about people working with people. And I think that the positive thing about that is when you have people, you still have the need to discuss and align, and you have all the kind of messy things that come with people talking to people, right?
There will be people working with people, AI working with AI, people working with AI. So all these relationship or dynamic will exist in the future.
Yeah. And by extension, I think there's still, maybe it's wishful thinking, room for product managers
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
future.
that reminds me of a conversation I had years back, actually before LLM, when one of my flatmates, he was a bit scared of the whole AI.
Visionary.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this still holds true though, but at that point, I tried to comfort him because my view is, yeah, AI could do a lot of things, but I think one thing it couldn't replace is finding problems that human have. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if they can do that. I never tested it.
Why? It go back to where you start before as a core of the product manager role about why this is important to do. The AI may find it out as a problem because they are good with patterns, but they may not be able to understand the why.
Yeah, maybe there is a realm, well, there's an area that people are already working on, right, where they create more like a simulation model to test and kind of like war model, right, to test all this research area. But I'd be very surprised how could one make a simulation model of humans kind of evolving, right? Because every time we go to a new period or new era, we have new problems coming in. How could you predict that beforehand? I think it's quite evolving.
Interesting.
Mm.
All right, Kiet, do you want to do the honor, ask the really, really important kind of wrapping questions of the day?
Yeah, I guess we're coming towards the end of the chat, and the one question we wanted to ask was, Ryan, if you could give one piece of advice to the person you were 5 years ago, what would that be?
This is super contrarian, but I think people should learn economics or at least have a foundational understanding of economics.
Why? What triggered that?
From my understanding, a sense of the best value for being a product manager to the team, to the people, is making better decisions. And the whole study of economics is understanding how people make decisions. So if you learn that in a very fundamental way, I think it's quite good to make sense of things. Why users do this? Why do people pay for that and they don't pay for this? But even though things that they don't want to pay still drive them a lot of value. In that case, how do you position your product in a way that is sustainable and still deliver value to the consumers?
I really like that response. If I were to make one recommendation, if you want to nerd out about economics, there's a really good YouTube channel called Economics Explained that basically runs through countries, and it doesn't matter if it's a country or company. It kind of explains it in the same way around the inputs or the outputs and the reasons why they're successful or not successful, and the economic theory behind it. But it's very entertaining, so highly recommend it if you're ever interested.
Economics
There's another-
Explained, right?
Yep. That guy also happens to be Aussie.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe can you put the link into our show notes? I definitely have a look. Because the first book my dad bought for me when I was before I came to Australia was the Freakonomics. I think all of you guys must read it. That was really fun.
That was so fun.
Put a link as well. Maybe hopefully they will recognize us and one day invite Ryan to actually attend their podcast. There's another tradition that we do we generally will ask our guests to prepare one question for our future guest. So Ryan, do you have any questions you wanted to ask for the future product manager who joined this podcast?
If product managers don't exist anymore, what's the biggest disaster do you see?
What's the biggest disaster do you see? Okay. Cool. I'll write this down. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining the call. This has been amazing.
Had a lot of fun, and the passion and the curiosity obviously comes out with all the stories that you tell.
Thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for all the questions. I think
I have so much
very
more
good
questions we can ask for the next time.
yeah, I'm keen.